Will someone, can anybody, does anybody know how to make a free throw?
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Hulkin, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network your first listen every day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, pick your platform, download this podcast. The show's always free, and I always appreciate your support. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app, head over to FanDuel.com. Just get started today. When you lose 82-76 at home, and you only make 11 out of 19 free throws, you don't deserve to win. Sorry. Especially when you outscore the opponent in the paint. It feels like I say this every single year. It doesn't matter who the coach is at USC. Make a free throw. Can somebody please? As a former high school basketball coach, it's really frustrating to watch. And as a fan, it's even more frustrating to watch. And when you put it all together, it sucks. The Crosstown Showdown, round one. Yeah, I already told you, USC lost 82-76. They should have won the game. It was everything it was a good game. Don't get me wrong. Very competitive, high-spirited. A lot of animosity between the USC fan base and Kobe Johnson, who was running around. He made his first appearance. He got a little bit of a round of boos. So that was just for warm-ups, and then every time he touched the ball in the game, it was boo. And he anticipated it. If USC fans, if you're looking for a little bit of a moral victory, he fouled out with 7 points. He didn't really have an impact on the game. He did have one moment where he made a three-pointer, and I guess Agbo was guarding him. Well, supposedly was supposed to be guarding him. And when Agbo ran back down the other side, to go on offense, Kobe was kind of clapping in his face. And right after that happened, there was a stoppage. Coach Muss was in Agbo's face, put him on the bench. 30 seconds later, he was back in the game, but it was just like salt in the wound type of moment. The guy makes a three. He's kind of jawboning with you, reminding you, hey, you should have been guarding me. And then your head coach is yelling at you for not guarding the guy. So it was just one of those moments that caught my attention. I thought I'd bring it up. But the first time Kobe touched the ball in the game, I think it led to a turnover for the Bruins. But that was one of the keys of the game. USC turned the ball over too much. And it's not that it was the overarching reason why they lost. It wasn't. The overarching reason why they lost is, one, they couldn't make a free throw. And they just couldn't they couldn't dictate the way they wanted to play on offense. One of the things, UCLA is a really good defensive team. Got to give them credit for that. Mick Cronin, even though he's about this tall, you can't see where my hand is, but it's below the desk. He's a hard-nosed coach. He's the type of coach I appreciate. I like guys who emphasize defense first. And I like Coach Musselman. Don't get me wrong. Coach Muss, he's getting the job done. This team is close. They're just a play away. Not to quote Lincoln Riley, but just want to remind everybody, you got one guy returning from a team that was on scholarship, Harrison Hornery. He doesn't really even play that much. So you got a bunch of new guys who are really just trying to come together, find out who they are, what their role is, and become a cohesive unit, find that chemistry on the court. And it's tough, but they're getting there. So they are close. They've been in each of these games. Now, if they could just start winning them at home instead of winning on the road, who knows what would turn out. But yeah, too many turnovers, especially in the first half. It's one reason why UCLA was leading 26-23 with 6.5 minutes to play in the first half. And I mentioned that UCLA is a good defensive team. they're number one team in the NCAA in forcing turnovers. So USC had to make an adjustment. If you watch this team at all, they like to do a lot of one-on-one because of their size. They're typically across the board, they're about the same size, but in the backcourt, they're usually bigger than their opponent. So Desmond Claude, the first couple times he tried to back his guy down, they weren't recognizing help coming. The double team was coming, and it was leading to turnovers. So they had to kind of get that under control. Once they made that adjustment, USC was relying on the three-point shot. Yeah. So even though USC at the end of the game had outscored UCLA in the paint, I think it was like 30-28. And I bring that up because they have someone who's 7'3", weighs 200 pounds, soaking wet, Ade Mara. But he did enough. He affected the game in the paint. And the other thing that UCLA does on defense is they play man, and it's kind of like a pseudo zone, but to the point where they're playing man-to-man defense, but they really pack the paint. They protect it. So they make getting the basket tough. And that's what Coach Muss talked about after the game. UCLA, they're a tough physical team, and they foul a lot. And as I mentioned, Kobe Johnson fouled out. But all of a sudden in this game, the referees weren't calling it the same way. USC shot 19 free throws. UCLA shot, what was their number? Bear with me, 25. They were 20 for 25. USC was 11 for 19. There was one in particular call or non-call. Well, the USC drew the foul, but it should have been a continuation play. And instead, it was Desmond Claude going to the free throw line for 2 instead of an and 1. Coach Muss was losing it on the sideline. And from what people have been telling me, even the TV announcers were kind of epileptic about it. Like, what are these referees watching? That one guy with the crew cut, I don't know his name, but if I could have gotten away with it, I would have kicked him in the groin and walked away laughing. So you remember against Nebraska, Rashawn Agee making three-pointers left and right. He was shooting air balls left and right. But he did have a career high, 21 points. He made the adjustment, was going inside, made his baskets in there. He ended up going 0 for 3, I think, from three-point line. All 3 were air balls. It wasn't happening. And I'm not pointing the finger at him. I'm pointing out the difference, how you can be so good one game, and then the very next game is like, what happened? Forget how to shoot the ball. So at halftime, USC trailed 42-37. Again, it was a good game. They were in it. They had a chance to tie the score. They had a chance to take the lead late in the game at the free throw line. But again, couldn't get it done. Towards the end of the game, I think this was the dagger, so to speak. USC had a chance to, again, take the lead. And instead, what happens, they didn't. St. Thomas missed 2 free throws. You go down the other end, and I think it was Sebastian Mack. USC's playing great defense. The shot clock is winding down. It's near 0. Mack throws up not so much a desperation 3. I mean, he was under control. Boom, three-pointer. USC's down 4. So again, it was just one of those types of things. Wesley Yates, he had a chance to tie the score at 73 with just under 2 minutes to play. That's when Kobe Johnson had fouled out. He only made 1. With a minute and a half left to play in the game, I just mentioned the St. Thomas pair of free throws that he missed. That's when USC was trailing 73-72. And then again, that ensuing possession with Sebastian Mack. So after the game, Coach Muss, the video is up. I have it. I uploaded the post-game press conference with Coach Muss, Rashawn Agee, Wesley Yates also. That's over on the wearesc.com YouTube site. So when you're done watching this episode, you want to go watch those post-game interviews, you know where to go. But you could really sense Coach Muss's frustration. I asked him a question because he had talked about pressure. And I said, perfect segue, Coach. Thank you. Can you explain the difference, playing with pressure on the road, where the team seems to excel, winning on the road, but not being able to turn the corner, turn that page, and handle the pressure of winning at home in these types of environments, in these types of games? And he gave a really good answer. And it's hard to explain, but from when I was coaching high school ball, it's guys just trying too hard. The effort's there. You cannot question this team's effort. They do not quit. They fight to the end, but it's just not happening. It's not clicking. And unfortunately, when you have a chance to do it at the free throw line, and I think they kind of messed with their heads, like, all right, well, we're doing what we normally do. We're driving to the paint, we're getting to the basket, but we're not getting the calls. And then when you do get the calls, you got to make the free throws. It was just a really inconsistent night offensively. But you can't question their effort, what they did. Hopefully they'll be able to get them back. Last game of the regular season, USC plays that school called UCLA, Crosstown, Poly Pavilion. Last year, they split the games. UCLA won at Galen, USC won at Poly Pavilion. Let's do it again, right? One last note on the basketball game. Hadn't started yet. So a couple weeks ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I was reading some viewer mail, and one of the questions came from Vince Menino. I had no idea at the time. Before the game, Tom Homan comes up to me and says, Mark, everyday listener, thank you very much. By the way, I love when people come up and say, I listen or watch the show. It humbles me. It really does. So thank you so much, Tom, for coming up and introducing yourself. I'm bringing up these two names, Tom Homan, Vince Menino. They played on USC's freshman basketball team. This was back in 1965. Bill Mulligan was their head coach. And Tom was telling me, a couple little anecdotes. And it was, I'm fascinated with Trojan history, Trojan lore, tradition, all of that. And Tom was telling me, yeah, when we played UCLA twice that year. The guy I had to guard, Lucius Allen. You know who else was on that UCLA freshman team? This was before freshmen could play varsity. Lou Alcindor, a.k.a. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So props to Vince. Fight on to both you and Tom. He, again, told me some really cool little stories. I'm hoping that Tom follows through and sends me some information. I want to ask him some questions, dive into some Trojan history of basketball. I want to get his take on why it feels like USC never gets behind the basketball program. Why is USC a football school? I want to dive into that. We'll do that in another show, Locked on USC. We're going to start talking about football in the next segment. So there you go. USC had a chance. It was close. Good game. Good crowd. Wasn't sold out. Nevertheless, got to get it done. All right. Be back. All right. So Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams. Philadelphia, Kansas City. They're going for the three-peat. Endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel, the sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first down, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss. Or how many times will the referees protect Patrick Mahomes? FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from the kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake, right? Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Just bet $5, and if you win, you're going to score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official partner of Super Bowl 59. So I'm hanging out there, Galen Center, hanging out with my peers, the media. And I wanted to get their thoughts on the hiring of USC's new general manager, Chad Bowden. Talked about it on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC. Got some feedback. Some of it didn't like the way I presented the information. Some feel I'm too negative, too sarcastic. My answer is too bad. That's who I am. I am sarcastic. I am going to tell you exactly how I feel. And it's not always going to be rainbows and gumdrops and Candyland. No, there's not everything is always going to be rah, rah, rah. You've got to look at both sides of the coin. And if you're not sure what I'm saying, instead of assuming what I'm saying, ask the question. Get clarification. So I'm talking to folks in the media, some local, some national. And the overall sentiment was cool hire. Nobody thinks this is a bad hire, including me. I guess I have to emphasize that for some. But again, the consensus was, let's see how it all works out. And I said, why do you feel that way? I was asking the people in the media this question. Because we look at it more from a pragmatic approach. So for those of you who question my fandom, I wish I could speak to you like I would if we were just face-to-face in a bar. So all I can say is LMAO. Yeah, don't ever question my fandom or my loyalty or my affinity for USC. Don't go there. You'll lose. I will knock you out verbally, not physically. Anyways, moving forward. So I think some of you did not really understand what I was saying. The most important part of the communication process is listening. And if you're not sure what someone's saying, you need to get clarification. So I really want to emphasize that. Because some of you come at it like, you know who I am and what I'm talking about. You don't. Sorry. Anyway, one thought that came up from a few of them was, and it's the point I brought up on yesterday's episode of Locked On USC. Will Coach Riley and will Chad be able to work together? And we don't think that they won't be able to. But tell me you disagree with this next statement. Coach Riley is a control freak. It's not negative. It's not a bad thing. But when you are used to being in charge of everything, controlling the entire process, it's hard to let go of that. Trust me, I know. I have a lot of similar traits to Coach Riley. So we were kind of laughing at the fact that, the fans who think this is all that USC needs. And, that's why I labeled the show USC Savior. It was more of a poke and a jab at the fans. And it should definitely contrast the way I feel that Chad Bowden is going to be able to help the program. I don't think he's all that in a slice of bread. I think he's going to be a vital component, but I don't think he's the missing piece. Again, the consensus from the media was this hire came from a higher pay grade. I'm not saying Lincoln Riley was opposed to it, but we all kind of said, you know what? I think Jen Cohen probably encouraged this. Does that mean I think this isn't a good hire? No. But again, my use of the word savior, sarcasm. Yeah, definitely. But not, it was, I'm pointing at you, the fans. And those other three fingers are pointing back at me. Because I'm also a fan. So again, just to reemphasize, what is Chad Bowden coming to USC to do? He's coming to help organize, help with recruiting, work with NIL, House of Victory, budgets, contracts, organize, help Dave Emmerich. Again, I want to read you this quote from Steve Wiltfong, who said, this is what Chad's coming to USC to do. He's coming in there to help restore glory at USC the same way his mission every day was at Notre Dame. So he's coming in as a team guy ready to help elevate USC. In general, GMs are going to be more involved in the contract type talk. And I would think roster retention is just as important as adding to the roster. So he's going to get his first crack at showing what he's so good at. That energy, that vibe, the thing that, we talked about on yesterday's episode that made him so, and I'm using finger quotes, prolific at recruiting at Notre Dame. This weekend on Saturday, USC is going to be hosting a bunch of recruits. I don't have a list yet. Once that list is released, I will let you guys know some of those names on it. And I'm not sure if tight end Mark Bowman from Mater Dei, he just reclassified. I'm not sure if he'll be there. Originally, he was a class of 2027. He's now part of the 2026 class. He's considered the top tight end in the country. One of the top tight ends, definitely in California. But right now, he doesn't consider USC one of his favorites. So if USC wants to get inside his favorite bubble, so to speak, this is where Chad can start. Get down to Mater Dei, work on him. Or if he's on USC's campus, pull him aside, put your arm over his shoulder, say, USC really wants you. By the way, since we're talking about recruiting a little bit, did any of you see on social media on X, pretty much the entire USC defensive coaching staff and Lincoln Riley making a visit to Xavier Griffin? Yeah. You know who else was there? USC's new linebacker coach, Rob Ryan. He's a funny dude. I think someone made a comment, all right, man, that's 2 high schools. Am I done for the day? I think he's going to fit in really well on that staff. Someone asked, when I'm not working here on Locked On USC, I'm spending my other time over on wearesc.com. Someone asked Scott Schrader, what will it take as far as not just so much, what will it take to get those recruits to see differently than they have in the past? And Scott actually said this, and I want to warning for those of you who are sensitive, this might sound negative, trigger alert. This is what Scott Schrader had to say. USC needs to start showing it's better than an average football program. And if that doesn't happen this year, I'm not sure what other options USC has left other than to add an offensive coordinator. Ooh, where'd you hear that before? All new offensive coaches or a new head coach. Can't keep selling a vision forever, end quote. Is he wrong? I don't think he is. We're going into year 4. And I understand the dumpster fire that Lincoln Riley inherited. He also inherited NIL. He also inherited the transfer portal. And players in California aren't sticking around. Again, I don't have a list of recruits who will be on USC's campus on Saturday. It's going to be long. It's going to be extensive. But I'll be out there. I'll be out there before USC takes on Sparty. Number 7, Michigan State basketball, Galen Center, 1:30 tip-off. Get out there. Support this team. I'll tell you what. USC beats number 7. You're going to feel good. You'll be glad you made the trip. You might even rush the court. Who knows? One more segment to go. I want you to remember, how many of you watched Seinfeld? Remember Jimmy, the guy who talked in third person? Jimmy doesn't like that. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes. Taxes are waiting, and taxes are wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back. And then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you your taxes, their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert will find you your every deduction We'll find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment from everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back. Guaranteed, no waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live, their full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Is it possible? How is it possible that USC does not have one player on their roster that is worthy of being considered one of the top 25 players in the country? Remember, we're going into year 4 with Lincoln Riley as the head coach. Am I being negative right now, or am I pointing out that all of these way too early, or these off-season lists are coming out? On3 released another one. This one, their top 25 players in the country. I'm not going to read off the top 10. I have no argument with their top 10 list. If you're interested, get on over. Use the internet. On3, top 25 players in 2025. But here's 11 through 25. So you have linebacker Anthony Hill Jr., Texas. USC recruited him, by the way. Number 12, defensive tackle Dante Corleone, Cincinnati. Number 13 is a quarterback, DJ Lagway, Florida. Another quarterback, Arch Manning, Texas. Cornerback is at number 15, Jermod McCoy, Tennessee. 16 is a defensive end, TJ Parker for Clemson. You've got another defensive lineman, Reuben Bain Jr. from Miami. Defensive tackle, Peter Woods, Clemson. This name I want you to listen to. Jordan Tyson, wide receiver, Arizona State, checks in at number 19. Lenora Sellers, quarterback, South Carolina, is at 20. Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. Offensive lineman, Spencer Fano, Utah. Cornerback, Ian Terrell, Clemson. 24, quarterback, Carson Beck, Miami. Number 25, defensive end. I'm surprised this guy's so low. Danny Dennis Sutton, Penn State. That guy's really good. Going back to that name at number 19. Again, I know this is just a subjective list put out by one person's opinion. But would you take Jordan Tyson over Jacoby Lane or Mekhi Lemon? And I know I'm talking to USC fans. I get it. There's going to be a little bit of bias here. But are you telling me not one of those players is under consideration to be one of the top 25 players in the country? And again, how is it possible that USC doesn't have one? Anthony Lucas, he's not one on defense. Maybe Jakeem Stewart's going to be one on next year's 2026 list. Who knows? But I was looking at the list and I was going, wow, kind of really hits home. And again, I understand what Lincoln Riley inherited, but the roster's been turned over via the transfer portal and through recruiting. Elijah Page, he's not worthy of making that list? Really? Interesting. You know who I didn't see on there? Emmanuel Prayon. USC fans, we thought he was one of the top offensive linemen in the country. So again, these lists that come out, and the most surprising is you don't have a USC quarterback. Maybe Jaden Mayava earns that this year. Husan Longstreet, freshman. Get it. He doesn't deserve to be on the list. But again, line everything up. You're going into year 4. The advantages that Coach Riley and his staff have or had with the transfer portal, supposedly being able to develop relationships. And that's why you're bringing in Chad Bowman. Maybe they need someone who's better at developing relationships. Am I being too negative, or am I just pointing out some realistic things to consider? I mean, honestly, guys. All right. I will be back with another episode of Locked on USC tomorrow. We'll talk more about USC football, see if there's any recruiting news coming down the pipe. So until then, everyone, don't forget, when you're done making Locked on USC your first listen every day, go check out the Locked On College Football. I know a lot of you are big fans of Spencer McLaughlin. He knows his stuff, though. He'll talk about everything college football. And then when you're done with the Locked On Network, get on over there to wearesc.com. Lots of good written content. And if you want to really get a really good understanding of how I feel about USC hiring Chad Bowman, go read my Sunday takeaway. All right? So until then, everyone, you know what to do.